Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. We are back for another week. This is week 5 of Point of View with Cinder Bay School of Design in collaboration with ADI, which is Association of Designers of India. I am your host back again. My name is Shrishti Bajaj, and I am the curator and moderator of Point of View, along with my co-moderator, Aditi Dhar. This has been a fantastic 4 weeks. We've had some amazing speakers. We've got people from design education. We had people from architecture, from textiles. Who am I missing? And this week we have interior design. So we have 3 speakers coming from different, I guess, perspectives on interior design. Today we have Mridula Sharma, who's going to be our first speaker of the week. She is also a, master editor at Living, etc., a former editor at Living, etc. Then tomorrow we have Ayaz Basrai from the Bus Ride Studio. And on Saturday, we have Abhigya Neogi, a fantastic young interior designer. So very exciting speakers. And I hope you will tune in for all of these talks. Please remember they're at 3 p.m. So don't confuse the time. So starting with today, let me talk about Mridula before I bring her on. So Mridula has been involved in interior, Indian and international design for the last 25 years. She's the founder and former editor in charge of Living, etc. India Edition. She started her formal design journey with Inside Outside magazine. She's also known as MS and has been exposed to and reviewed interior and product design from India and abroad for the last 25 years. Besides Inside Outside, she has worked on launching design magazines for several leading publishing houses such as Design Today, India Today, Better Homes and Gardens, Media Transasia, and now Brudal International. Living etc. Images Group 2009 and Living etc. Malayala Manorama in 2017. She has an inevitable of Mridula to move into interior design and styling, I beg your pardon, with a varying level of interior design consulting for resorts, homes, offices. She specializes in creating interiors that reflect and epitomize the individual's lifestyle and comfort levels. She doesn't like cookie cutter interiors. And I think we're going to hear a little bit about what that perspective is and where it comes from. She loves designing along with Indian rich heritage of design and culture. She's also produced and authored a coffee book table on timber resorts and continues to be involved in design publishing. Currently, besides working on interior design, she's creating a platform for all stakeholders of the industry to make the interior design industry even stronger. And therefore, without further ado, can I please welcome MS or Mridula Sharma to join us on video, please? Hi, Mridula. Hello.
Hi, Srishti. How are you?
I am very well. Welcome to Point of View. I'm so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. And it's nice. It's so nice to be on this lovely platform that you have created for Cinder Bay because we've had some. I've been listening into all your other previous conversations, and very interesting indeed. And that's just what we need right now, right? We need so many points of view because we are at the threshold of moving into the next level of design.
No, it's been an interesting journey, I think. Even if I look back to my design life, I would say life, because I think once you're a designer, it's hard to live any other way. There's been such a huge shift over the years in the way the trends and interior design industry have begun influencing us. I think now more than ever before, it's a very exciting time to be in this field. And I wonder what your thoughts are about that. Do you see that there's been a shift in the last 4 or 5 years?
Oh my God. It's like, from the time, if I were to go back to the time when I was at Inside Outside, and if I were to kind of break it down in brackets, the way, we used to talk about democratizing design. There was a time when design was only luxury and only for a few, and the few privileged had access to first get
It was
things.
premium. It was considered premium.
Yeah, it was. And, we always felt that for design to become, for us to, basically have a higher level of basic design, it needs to get across to a lot more people. And it is so nice to see that happening. And it has happened so fast. I don't know if we were sure we were expecting it to happen this fast, but I am so glad that we have reached a point where not only has it become quite widespread and it's really gotten under people's skin, it's also we're doing a lot of Indian craft-based design. So all the new design that is coming, there's a lot. So 2000, beginning of 2000 is when we started seeing the shift.
Mm.
And that time there were just a few people doing, and they were introducing this whole that Indian crafts could be looked at differently. And today in 2021, which is like 21 years later, we find most of the new design that's coming up, it's mostly based in Indian crafts. So I think we've really done well for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's
There's a lot to
fantastic.
be done.
Absolutely, and I definitely feel that it's still we're just scratching the
It's
surface.
absolutely, it's only you're only scratching the surface, and there is so much more because, I mean, from a little segment, it became an industry, and now it's become a sector, and it's just we are with the opening of the economy and imports becoming easier, and your things like pins and needles, or all your the elements that you need, the hardware that you need to create a interesting piece, all those being easily accessible, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think the quality of Indian work has become so much better. I mean, forget much, but so much better.
It is.
I think
It
there's
is
a sort
better
of
though. Let me say it right here that we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go, given our huge heritage, given our the kind of things that were being done earlier. There is no reason why we can't be international at the international level. Much more of us at the international.
I think that's a great thought to begin today's session with. But let's go back a little further for you. How did the journey really begin? I mean, for the audience, let me say that you don't come from like a traditional design education background. And what's interesting is that a lot of our speakers ended up accidentally going to design institutions, but for you it's not been, that's not where you started. So please tell our audiences how you ended up being, I think I would call you one of the mavericks of Indian design and style, because I think you've been part of this entire curve for India for a very long time. And I think you've always had your pulse, your finger on the pulse of this country. So it's amazing. So how did you start?
It's really interesting. I've done my master's in mass communication. So I trained as a journalist,
Right.
and I specialized in magazine journalism. And at that point in time, so I knew politics and, all that crime beat and all was not for me. So,
Okay. I
and
love the crime beat. Yeah, that'll be
yeah,
interesting.
because I had seen, like, my dad was from the police, so I had seen enough of all that stuff. I wanted to stay away from that. Though at one time I did want to join the IPS, but that's a different thing. But when I grew up and I grew into an adult, I realized that I wanted to stay away from all the harsh part of life that you see in the police life. And in journalism, I was going to go for lifestyle. And the magazines that we didn't have too many magazines that time. When I did my bachelor's, that was really long back, and then I did my master's in the 90s. So I trained as a journalist, and I done my master's. And you know how after master's degree, you've got all these theories of communication and development communication, and you want to do big things and everything. But at that point, I also had two small children. And I knew I could only work 4 hours in a day. So the first job that I really landed was launching a food magazine.
Aha, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a food magazine. And I remember walking back from that interview and saying, like, God, what am I doing? After all those theories and after all that you studied, you want to do a food magazine. And also, I didn't know where to begin. There were no food magazines. And the only food we used to read about were recipes in Femina and Eve's Weekly
Okay.
and all the other magazines. That's all. So there was really no benchmark. There was nothing to get started on. But I guess that's where the real challenge was. That was the excitement. And so we launched a full-fledged food magazine. And then I did food, travel, fashion. And I started freelancing. And then in 97,
Wait, hold that thought. Hold that thought. I know that you have some amazing images of some of the magazines during that time. Can we see those, please? Just
okay, so
drive the
I
audiences
will
of
need to go into.
archival images. I think one of the pleasures of being on Point of View and speaking to so many amazing people have been that their experiences and their archival images have been fantastic, and I think it does transport you to a different time, and it really brings into contrast where we are today and how it all was. So it's fantastic to see all those images.
Sorry, I am just
So
coming
play.
on play. Yeah. So yeah, so this is, I'll have to make the screen a little smaller, I think, right?
No,
Because
fine.
it's
We can.
fine.
Yeah, absolutely good.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so that's my early years. I did my master's in mass comm, and then I switched to lifestyle, food, travel, fashion, and finally I joined Inside Outside in 97. And this was after I had done enough of food travel for so many years. I had taken a 3-month break. I traveled across Europe to the US and with the kids, and I really kind of cross mapped our cultural differences, so to say. And learned everything new that I was experiencing, whether it was, I mean, regarding food and their lifestyle and everything. And 97, when I came back, I had this opportunity to join the Delhi office. And that's where really my excitement and and it was like coming home. For me, interiors was always special. I had always, I think now, today, if I were to look back where this whole thing started, I can probably connect the dots that when I was a little girl, like a little girl means a young adult, and we used to have a lot of these parties, a lot of huge dinners at home. My father, being in the police, and we were in Simla. So a lot of people would visit during summer, and summer months used to be very busy. And my job was to get the house ready for the party. So I'm guessing somewhere it went back to that, the joy that I used to experience, cutting flowers, putting the flowers together, doing up the rooms, the powder room, the dining table, the table setting, and all. So somewhere I feel, it must have. And then also I grew up. I did spend some 5 years in Chandigarh. So Corbusiers. That also had an impact because I used to always hear my parents talk about how beautiful the city was, and their friends would be discussing, oh, what a beautiful place. And it is now, I mean, it's such a coincidence that my father's office was Corbusier's site office, which was
Wow.
then. So a lot of times when I used to come back from school, sometimes I'd be taken to dad's office, and my dad's room, my dad was using the room that Corbusier used to use.
Ah.
There's a little patio outside their room, and I used to play about. And now when I go back to that place, my God, it's like, I didn't know that I was at such a hallowed space where Corbusier was sitting and making the drawings, and, they were doing all the work for the city. So,
Amazing.
yeah, I guess somewhere all that fed into my psyche. And when I got this chance in 97, it was really the beginning of a journey. And I never thought of leaving the field. There were opportunities, but I decided I was not going to leave the interiors segment.
Well, we're very glad you stayed because I think the body of work that you've been able to put together, and I'm sure we'll see some of that in some of the other slides, Phenomenal.
And then in 2006, I worked with India Today to launch, to work on the launch of Design Today, which was their design magazine. So that is the time. So, if we were to come back to a point in time where design started making a difference in India, this was the time. Early 2000 is the time when, there was a lot of action happening in the field. There were Indian designers. There was a looking at Indian crafts, and there were products which were, because imports had opened. So there were people like FCML who were importing Philippe Stark products, which was like really interesting for people to be able to go to a store and buy the kind of stuff they would buy in Paris somewhere. So all that really helped to feed the Indian design sector, I would say, today.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so there were so many magazines being launched in succession. There was 2006, and then by the end of 2006, I was at Better Homes to launch. I was at Media Transasia to work on the launch of Better Homes and Gardens. And within a year, I was at Images to, Living, etc. First version was ready. I mean, like they were talking, and I was there to get started on that. So till about 2010, till 80, yeah, until about 2010 is when we had a whole lot of Indian design magazines coming in.
It's true.
And so 2009 is when we finally launched the first version of Living, etc., which was with the Images group. This is our some of the covers, and our first, when the first issue went to press, we said, okay, let's hit the party scene. And that was, and then of course, after that, so many years, we did Living, etc. once again with Malayalam Manorama this time. And that's what I've been doing. So again, we reworked. And interesting part was that between 2012, when the first version closed down, to 17, the industry had changed so much.
Mhm.
It was very, very interesting to see there was so much more proliferation of design, so to say, at levels that were not seen earlier. So that was heartening. But what was not heartening was that this proliferation was happening in all directions. And, it was happening so fast.
Mm.
It needed, there was some, and so the Indian market was also hungry for design. You see, the customers were just, like everybody had to, because the internet also became strong that time, and people started seeing all these visuals. People were traveling a lot. So when they were coming back, they wanted to see their homes looking like what they had seen, the travels.
That's true.
So
Yeah,
that's
I'm going to interrupt you for a quick second here, only because I think Living Etc., as far as I've seen over the years, and I remember that the first time I met you was because you were showcasing one of the products that I had created many, many, many moons ago.
yes.
But the consistency that I've seen Living Etc. produce in terms of work and quality of work, I kind of feel like that the Living Etc. language almost preempted a lot of the design work that came after. So I'm curious, how did that happen? Because generally I would say that magazine usually follows what's happening in India, but I think in India's case, I think the magazines were there before there was such a proliferations of younger brands and studios doing that kind of work. So how did that happen for Living Etc. and you being at the helm?
So, you always have to keep, in the magazine, you always have to be ahead of the curve.
Mm.
You have to see what's coming. And uh, and it's not just that you look in any direction, because it has to be a calculated look and a calculated perception of what's going to come in the next few years or the next coming thing. So the biggest thing is that you've got to have your eyes and ears on the ground,
Right.
to see, because so there, to answer your question, also, like, I've had this fantastic experience of working with Asian Paints for the color forecast, and we've done a lot of deliberations as to what is going to feed into the trend. So that it's not that you're not picking up a color, you're not picking up something just out of the blue randomly. If
Mhm.
there is a reason why you're going in a particular direction, and it is so nice. Let me admit it here. It is so nice to see all that validated, in time when it comes true, when you see on the ground those things coming to life.
Mm.
It's and it's a cycle, I mean, in not in so many words, it's like you have a thing with your audience, with your market,
Mhm.
and you're telling them what's coming up. This is the way you should be, this is the direction to be looking at. And you do have people who look in that direction, and then on the ground you see products,
Yeah,
design happening like that. So I say further, it's like an ecosystem.
yeah.
Design is an ecosystem.
It's an ecosystem, and you're a forecaster in certain senses. You can envision the future, literally, actually. So that's very, very interesting. So how long have you been with Living Etc. now? I mean, we're looking at 2001.
Uh,
Um, and I mean, I'm very curious to see what did your job entail as an editor in charge?
So to say that, what did my job entail was like, one, of course, is content curation. And for that, you're like, if design world is the sun, you are the earth, you're orbiting around it, right? And in 30 days, you have to come up with all new content, which is as exciting and interesting every month after. I mean, that's why monthly magazines are very challenging, month after month, to come up with new content that makes sense and is relevant and is honest is not easy. But so that is the basic thing, is content curation. And I think um I don't know whether to blame myself. No, I won't say blame, but I was very think every picture that went into the magazine for all these years had to be cleared. I had to clear it myself.
Oh, hmm.
So that was, I think, one thing where, some of my team members might have also found it a little, but it's like I used to tell you, it's got nothing to do with you. It's just that there is a thing floating in my head, and it has to go. Everything has to be in tandem with that.
Hmm.
I can like give you, but then the flow and the rhythm will fix. So sorry, to that extent, yes, I was handling everything myself. And of course, it meant that we were doing all the shoots, home shoots. We were doing style shoots. We were, of course, part of the that's the part of the content. And of course, you're also meeting all the new product people, all the new designers. And this is, of course, this slide takes you into what making of one picture means. There's a lot of sweat and toil to create just one picture. Forget about doing a full magazine and then doing full features. There's a lot of work that goes in. There's a lot of there are a lot of tempers also. Let's not forget that. And it's not easy, there's all ladders, and the site looks, you've seen, I remember when we were using your cart for our shoot, the office manager came back. He said, "Ma'am, what did you do?" I said, we had, because the studio was on a first floor, and they had to carry your beautiful card. That was such a lovely piece. I was looking for its picture. I couldn't find it, but I will share it for some time.
Hmm.
That was such a beautiful piece. And but for them to take it up the stairs to the studio and to set it up, they said, "My God, we had such a problem taking it." I said, "That's just one of the things, like we have so many." So that's, yeah, shoots are the most exciting, and they're also, but then shoots, when you finally see 8 pages of the shoot, it's nothing of what has gone into it, because
Hmm.
you've done some 8 days, 10 days of sourcing. And before that, you've done the shortlisting, the sketches. Oh, don't even ask me. It just brings back fatigue.
Well, I hope a lot of the students in the audiences learn from this, because if you ever have your product featured in any of the magazines, you will have to be there on the side shooting with the editor of a magazine, with all the photographers, with the stylists, and yeah, it's a lot of sleepless nights and days.
Yeah, and it's a lot of legwork. Believe me, it's very tiring. You've got to be on your toes from like at least 16 hours in a day.
Hmm.
That's the thing. So these are some of the things. Then putting content together, the magazine, this is like what, so since we Living Etc. was a fashion, fashion based design magazine, we would always be looking at trends. And so a lot of people may not have, it's not very evident, like it'll be evident, but you can't make out. But when we choose, say, a thing like this, then there is a lot more going on. It's just a single page, but then you have to look for all the products in the market, what the other leading brands are doing, and get it all out. And this is what the office, this left picture is. So once all the pages have gone to press, so from the left side of the board, all the pages in quarter size come to the right side. So
Okay.
this is now what you're seeing on that wall is a full going down below 120 pages, starting from, I don't know which issue it was. Probably, yeah, I think it was a Jan issue or something. So that's what the office, of course, I'm not showing you any pictures of the craziness that happens. And then magazine also means a lot of talks and events. You have to interact with a lot of audiences, because people must know about the magazine, and of course, then you have your events, and you also have to coordinate and meet with a lot of leading brands, their heads. You meet the marketing people, what their plans are, what they're going to show. So yeah, and of course Salone and all those fairs where you can walk up to 25 kilometers in a day, just covering all the all the stalls. So yeah, there's a lot of, but primary work, of course, remains content curation,
Hmm.
which you cannot. And then, of course, actually, I haven't put those pictures, but there are a lot of pages of corrections. So the last 1 week goes in coordinating, especially in since I was based in Delhi, and our final thing would happen from Kerala. So we would have to coordinate with the Kochi office, with the Kottayam office, with this thing, and finally the printing would happen in Bangalore. So there was like a whole lot of, at different levels, and suddenly you realize, oh no, that correction needs to go in here. It's so much
Basic
correction.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Mridula, I want to pause here for a quick second. And I have a poll question actually coming up for audiences. And the reason why I'm bringing this here is because you mentioned something about going to Saloni, Mobile design weeks across the globe. And of course, when we look at the aesthetic and the sensibilities in the magazines and some of the influences, I think we see a lot of international trends that do still influence the Indian market. So holding that thought, I want to ask Swapna, could you please share the first poll question with our audiences? And I'll pick your brain on this once we see what the audiences reply. So here's the question. Do you think international trends translate well for Indian sensibilities? Is it yes, the world is a global stage, or do you feel that it's only in certain contexts that one can translate it? Or the fact that most times they don't, perhaps, and there is not at all. We need Indian trends instead, or does it take time because Indians embrace trends slower than anywhere else in the world? So you guys get 30 seconds to answer this question. But and in the meantime, I'm going to ask you this, Mridula. How does it really happen? Where do you find you draw the line between an international trend and an Indian trend, or is it a mixed bag, or does it usually just flow or percolate itself in the original form? How does it work?
Yeah, that's really interesting. You asked that, because even though we are in a, the world is a much smaller place today, and international trends get, we don't have to wait for a year for the trends to reach India. So we get the trends immediately. not all the trends make sense for Indian, I won't say sensibility here, I would say for our conditions.
Okay.
You know, much as we love white, much as we love the way Europe was and the West was using white, we had some whites here. They were a nightmare to maintain. They were a
Yeah.
nightmare to maintain.
Yeah.
I remember, there was this beautiful house we had covered in the first version. Beautiful house in Bangalore. It had all white flooring.
Wow. Hmm.
And in a place like Bangalore, where you have so much rain and you have red mud, and people, and these houses have a lot of staff coming in. Can you imagine that lady it looked beautiful. It made beautiful pictures. I think we had it on our cover also. And it was a beautiful house, but a nightmare to be maintained by the lady of the house.
Of course. Let's see what our audiences say. Can we have the poll answer, please? I wonder if they agree or disagree. So the highest voting is for yes, but only in certain contexts. That's 37%. Yes, the world is a global village, 33%. So there's not a lot of difference in that. Indians embrace trends slowly. I think 20% agree with that assessment. 6% say that we need Indian trends instead, and only 4% think they don't work ever. So, how would you read this response from the audiences?
So I think they're bang on. I think the audience has got it just right that the world is a global village. We are getting smaller, and we relate more to other international homes, but we do need, our own tempering.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, sorry.
You're going to share screen again, please?
Yeah. So what happens is that, say even I think a few years ago, 2 years ago was it, when we had living coral as the color of the year. That color would make a lot of sense in one country, but in India, when we had to use it, we couldn't use it the way it was. We had to add a little, we had to get a deeper tone into that. So everything else being the same, we do need to modify it to the Indian thing. It's not only the conditions, it's also our sensibility. It's also our levels of, comfort and ability to manage things. So let's not forget that we are a different set of people. And while the international trends also have a logic behind them, or, there is, but we need to temper them to our own style.
That's very well said, and I do hope that India sets the tone for global trends in the future. I hope that starts happening very, very soon.
I don't see that happening very soon, Srishti. Let me be honest. I don't see that happening immediately, but yes, we have a lot to offer in terms of our crafts. So, and the good thing is that we've been talking about crafts, Indian crafts, and how they need to be, and in the last 5 years, a lot has happened. In 2000, early 2000, when people like Karu, Sanjeev and Anjali, and Mike Knowles of India Chic, they started interpreting Indian crafts in an international style. That's when Indians living in India started embracing and seeing that, oh my God, that looks so nice. And this is something I can relate to. So the presentation was international, and what was being presented was something, you'd seen mirror work somewhere, you'd seen the Sanji art, you've seen your sandstone work. So all of that, when it got a new language, I think we really got excited about it. And we see, I mean, I think these two people, especially Karu and India Chic, Mike Knowles and Sanjeev and Anjali, what they did was, of course, Sanjeev and Anjali, what they were doing was selling they were so craft based that, and it was so intense. And obviously, it was also higher cost and work. They were selling very well in Japan at that time, in early 2000. Yeah, so there was a big market. So it's all about getting, but of course, it's been very exhausting for them, I'm sure, because they've had to, like, if they needed a certain nail of a certain strength, I think that also they had to, way back in 2000, they had to figure it out themselves.
Yeah, you have to.
Even people like Ayush,
Hmm.
Kasliwal,
Festival.
they've
Hmm.
done a lot to bring back Indian crafts. And there is now a great acceptance, and we are seeing a lot of pride in Indian homes based on Indian crafts. Yeah.
I find more and more that Indian homes have become much more eclectic in the way they
Yes.
present themselves. It's a mixed bag of influence, exactly how India is actually.
Yes.
So there's no one thread, and as it should be, there are multiple elements, sensibilities as a melting pot, really, and that's, I think, fantastic. I wouldn't change that at all. I also know that you did a coffee table book, and I saw an image in your presentation of that. Can we?
I'll just go back to it. Where is it?
You'll have
Sorry,
to
I need to get back to my keynotes. Yeah.
keynote.
Mm, sorry. I'm not a pro at this, but I'm loving the fact that I'm learning so much of technology because of this.
Play, please.
You know, when you have, are we at the thing? Can you see it?
Yes, but you have to go and do play so that we can
Okay.
have screen.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, this is the book I done in 2013, when I was on that break between the first version and the second version. Of course, at that point I didn't know whether the second version was coming back. But so this architect, Kerala-based architect, Mahesh, I had been seeing his work when I lived in Kerala for 2 years. He was doing a lot of work. So actually, coming back to your point of Indian design, a lot of Indian design started happening with hospitality. And it wasn't just people traveling abroad that they were seeing. There were even Indian travel was becoming very interesting. And it was such a interesting point in time, and from 98 to 2000 when I was in Kerala. So I was with Inside Outside. I was setting up editorial bureau for them there. And there was Mahesh, who was doing all these. He was doing back to back resorts. And Kerala had this God's own country, which Amitabh Khan, who was the Secretary of Tourism at that time, he was really pushing the God's own country campaign. And Mahesh was spinning out all these beautiful projects. And I was writing about them, and most of them were making it to the cover. So, it just built an ecosystem, and there were so many of these interesting projects. And so 2013, we were just, Mahesh was in Delhi for something, and we were just having a conversation, and he said, why don't we do something? And then I said, okay, let me just go through. And then I said, your resorts really stand out, forget the rest of the buildings. Let's talk about resorts. And then we said, okay, among the resorts, let's just figure it out about timber resorts, because that was really interesting. So we did about 14 resorts, 11 resorts and 3 homes which were no less than resorts. And we did a 264 page we did something like 10,000 pictures, and in 10 months we had it out. Yeah. We had yeah, it was really beautiful. It was a great experience, again, very exhausting, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the night. We would be on the location, and I even kind of developed the sun allergy because of being, it's a different thing to go there as a guest, and it's a different thing to go there to shoot, and you're there on you know so yeah, that was a great experience. And I just loved bringing this book out. It was right from the concept of it to the launch, and the launch party that we had, couple of launch parties that we had. And we had Shashi Tharoor giving us the foreword for this, and we had Captain Nair giving us the epilogue. So it really it was a great experience and also a great learning.
And people can buy this book, right? They can go to a bookshop and
they're on Amazon.
perfect.
Available on Amazon. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
So yeah, that was the thing. Then I did some interior design. I've also been doing, helping people create the homes that they like. I'm sorry, the slide is like this because I didn't have this thing. The story was published, and I've just taken pictures out of the magazine, so it looks a bit messy, but it was a great experience. And I have been doing other offices and interiors for people. Basically, I do not believe in putting down something from, even though I've been doing the magazines, but I wouldn't pick up a magazine page and put it in somebody's house. I would much rather do put in things that they can relate to at the end. Because, I have to tell you this, a lot of times, and I've had this experience myself, and I can see that a lot of homes are designed as per pictures. Mm-hmm. And they are not homes, they are houses for the people who come in to live. And we had this trend, the homes were too sterile. The homes they did not reflect the personality of the homeowners. At the end of the day, you see, we have to remember that it's the homeowner who has to live in it. It's his money being spent on it. Right? He needs to feel really comfortable and proud about it, not just because it's making good pictures, but because it serves all the purposes and it meets his unique needs. So that is a very important angle that I would like, since we have our audience is mostly students, I would like them to keep this in mind whenever they do their projects, that keep in mind the user, keep in mind, I may love something totally different, but that's for my house. The other person has to live in that house, and it has to be, of course, it's about upgradation. Of course, the reason is that the reason they're going to a designer is because they have aspirations. You have to meet their aspirations, but within their ecosystem. We have to take design as an ecosystem. It's not a standalone thing. It's not a standalone.
Absolutely, well said. And I think one of the things that I often tell students is that you're not designing for yourself, you're designing for your client, your user. So the end person is very, very critical.
Yes.
It's not about your taste and sensibilities, it's about their worldview and perspectives and their point of view.
See, yes, it's about point of view, right? And then to say that, I did these, of course, it was very interesting, these conversations, the group conversations that we used to have for Asian Paints. It used to be organized by a third-party agency. And we met some very interesting people, and the points of view point of view was very, very interesting. I love that experience. And then in 2012, we also, so that was a very interesting exercise, experiment, which came a little before its time. There was this friend, a partner who had moved from New York. He was working with Deloitte over there, and he'd come back to India, and we decided to create a wedding registry. And soon we realized that wedding registry will not work. So let's do something else. And we decided that we'll have a platform where, say, you have one hidden gallery in Delhi. You have now, of course, we have so many OMAs and so many good earths. Those days in 2012, there was probably only one or two good earths. And I said, why? There's no reason why people living in other parts of the country cannot shop from Good Earth or from any other, boutique, which is a standalone boutique. So we were creating a platform for boutiques for boutique shopping. And soon, I think within a year, we realized that we need to give it time, because supply chain logistics were not sorted, and people were not very comfortable doing online payments at that time. And another thing we could not promise was, like, see, boutique shopping is not just about shopping, it's about the experience. So therefore, we were very, very particular that whatever people are going to buy from this exclusive.in, it has to give them to a large extent the experience that they would go into a boutique. So which meant packaging, which meant transportation, which meant delivery, all those things. And we realized that we could not promise that, given that our shipping situation was not what it is today. And there was a general reluctance about e-commerce at that point. So, and this was only 2012, so it's less than 10 years. And look at the problem, look at how things have changed. Isn't it exciting?
Very exciting. I mean, look at the brands like Pepper Fry and
My
Urban Ladder.
goodness.
And,
Yeah, today you have so many brands, and people can choose from every bracket.
you were ahead of your time, Mridula. As like I said, you're a forecaster. I think you were totally ahead of your time there.
So yeah,
Yeah,
but it continues to be a work in progress. I guess nothing goes waste. That's another thing I want to tell the students. Remember, nothing goes waste. Whatever learning, whatever experiment you do, it will come back to help you at some point. So yeah.
I can attest to that as well. So I know that you also have, and this is for the audiences very quickly. Mridula also has a small bite on how trends come about. So wait for that. There we go.
Yes. So to say it all, that design in itself is an ecosystem. It's not anything it does not exist in isolation. So obviously, you're all design students. You would know that you have all your elements of lighting, color, everything else, and that ecosystem that has to be uh, manifested. It has to be manifested for the society's aspirations. That is your clients make the society, and the collective aspiration is what you need to keep looking at. And so, if I were to sum up my core learnings in these years, is that, especially of relevance to students, please, there's no pontification, just some broad guidelines. So keep working to expand your bandwidth. Okay, you may be very good doing what you're doing right now, but that's not enough. You need to keep expanding that. You have to keep feeding your curiosity, imagination. Do not stop dreaming. Keep some time aside for imagination, for going into la la land and having crazy experiences, because you don't know what you'll come up with. And faster internet also means faster scaling up. So be prepared, be ready with it. Technology, stay up to date with technology, and keep adding layers to your core competency. And study the masters, because they have tread your journey much before you. You learn from others' lessons, and keep learning.
Very,
That's
very
it. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's so much about what I have been doing so far. And let's just, so are we, so do
yeah.
we have
I
questions?
Yes, I have a question. In fact, I have a poll question right here. Can we have poll question 2, please? I think these 3 are very, very important questions, and I'm going to give the audiences 30 seconds to answer the poll. Can we have poll number 2, please? Before we start talking about trends, I wanted to ask the audiences that when you discover a design trend, what is your response generally? Can we have the poll question, please? Hi, Swapna. Poll question 2, please. There we go. So when you discover a design trend, what is your response generally? Do you understand the relevance? Do you think it's only hype? Is it substantiated by research? Do you not believe in trends? Or is it your absolute holy grail? Where do you stand? Very quickly, 30 seconds. I think if I were asking this question, I would say it is substantiated by research. It's such an important aspect, at least for me, it's such an important aspect of being able to create and envision these trends. Okay, I'm not going to give the audience much time. Let's have the answers, please. I really want to know what they say. Did you just listen to me and like clicked.
Right. I'm so glad that we are all on the, yeah, wonderful. Great.
55%, that's an overwhelming majority. That's excellent. I hope so. It means that they do understand how trends come about, and 23% they understand the relevance. So
They
that's a strong majority.
wonderful. Yeah,
Absolutely
we're all on the same page. So
fantastic.
we're looking at markers.
Yes. So
Okay.
how do trends? How do
So let me just take you to the next. I want you to just enjoy this and tell me what you see after that. Can you hear
Smooth
it?
like butter, like a criminal undercover. Gone pop like trouble, breaking into your heart like that. Crochet summer, yeah, I owe it all to my mother. Hot like summer, yeah, I'm making you sweat like that. Break it down. Ooh, when I look in the mirror, I'll melt your heart into two. I got the superstar glow, so to the booty line. Shake it right there to my beat.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah, lots. Well, I was reminded of your white anecdote, White House anecdote, and I was wondering how do they keep their white clothes so clean? But definitely the color, the background wall, that
That,
was extremely vivid.
that was the point. Spot the markers. Those are markers. Now, there was another video which I wanted to bring in. I've not been able to. So the previous year, so these guys, BTS, has done two versions of the same song, and they did one version with the yellow and gray, which was the color of 21,
Aha.
and this is going to be the coming thing. So so this video was basically to say that this is where you pick up your markers. These are markers.
And when you say markers, you mean these are the things that will influence the
Yes,
forthcoming trends, right?
this is certainly a feed. So basically, how trends happen is there are a lot of feeds that come into the final, to the point of distillation, if we were to say the distillation peaker. And the thing is that you will find lots of trends because there is so much happening in the world, right? And you will find trends. Pantone will give you one color. Another agency might give you, but it'll be somewhere in the same space because what is happening in the world around us is pretty much the same, right?
Right.
You have to find our alignment. That is where you kind of start, I'm just thinking in terms of students, how do they think? So in the universe of whatever they are noticing, they need to come to their alignment, see what they vibe with, and
Mhm,
try to analyze that
mhm.
and move along that line, and then try as much as they can stay true to that. You
Okay.
know, your sweet spot could vary.
Right.
Your neighbor could have a different sense, you could have a different sense. In the end, what matters is not the trend being copied, but how it has been interpreted,
Right.
how it has been manifested, and the balance and the synchronization between different elements, the proportions, the balance, and the rhythm that you generate among the elements. That is what would be how the best way for different people to use the same trend for themselves. So it's not that a cookie cutter trend will work for everybody in the same way. And
Right.
it's okay. You know, if there is a yellow color, which Pantone has said yellow and gray, and you're not connecting with it, it's okay. You don't have to force it. If it's not coming into the ecosystem, it's okay
Hmm.
to yourself because there is a whole lot happening. But remember that, it has to be um, it's the totality that matters. You're a
Yeah.
design person yourself, you know that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's what, yeah.
Mridula, I have a request for you to speak a little louder. The audio is a little feeble, so if you could
Yeah.
come closer to the mic, please.
I could move the,
It's,
is that better?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll just take you through some slides that tell you how trends, how we look at, we create one pool
Right.
and how we are feeding the pool, and
Mhm.
what we will distill out of this will come to be a macro or a micro trend thing.
Interesting.
So yeah, this is the
This seems
cycle.
very similar to the BTS video that you
It just so happened, I hadn't, it wasn't planned like that,
hmm.
but
Well, your eye is obviously picking up the
going there, so your psyche is going there.
yeah, yeah.
That's what. And there is this whole, now what's going to happen in the coming year, we've all been through this pandemic and we are all trying to make sense of it. And, but we all know we have to carry on. So we have to carry on. These are some things that we are going to be thinking about all the time. We have realized we've had so many calamities,
That's true.
crazy freak weather that's happening all over the world. It's telling
Mhm.
us, we have to take care of nature and we have to be careful. We are the ones who are going to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
So
fact, can I just pause you here very quickly? I had a question for you. I think from one of the things that's always been on my mind, and especially having been part of this industry, that while I understand the economics of this, I understand that every year you have to come up with a new range of whether it's clothes, whether it's products. But there's also a realization that has happened for me is that in some sense, we're also pushing consumerism, which also then leads to adding to a more fragile ecosystem. We've seen what's happening to our current ecologies globally. So how does one find peace with what they're doing? Because I'm sure for a lot of students, that's going to be an important question, especially in the next 4 or 5 years, because this debate about design and consumerism is reaching its epitome very, very quickly. How do you
I love that you're saying this. You know why? Because this whole thing, what you are feeling, a lot of people are feeling, right?
Mm,
And that's what trends are made up of. You are feeding a trend. When you are thinking like that, when you are feeling like that, you
mm,
are feeding a trend. And what is that? We've,
interesting.
you see, about 8, 10 years ago, we started talking about nature sustainability, and now we have we have a whole lot of stuff which is nature based. That's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
plastic is getting relegated. What you are feeding into, and I hope that it becomes a trend and it becomes a widespread trend faster than I'm thinking it will,
mm,
is this upcycle.
right.
You see, we have all realized, we've all felt that we've got too many things around us.
Yeah.
We are, you want to buy a new piece, you like something, but you're not buying because I'm not going to, clutter the house anymore.
Mm,
But you want the new stuff, but you don't want to throw away your old stuff. And it's good stuff.
mm,
In India, especially, but what's happened is in Sweden already, you have a mall for
that's
upcycled
true.
products.
That's true.
Yeah. They've
Traditionally, we
always
used
had
to do
small
that.
shops. They've always,
Traditionally, in India, everything was upcycled or reused, at
yeah,
least
we
recycled.
lost. Yeah. We suddenly became very apologetic about it.
Mm,
Initially, we used to take pride in see how I reused a product, how I reused a fabric. I mean, if you go back, I mean, it was just done as a matter of fact.
yeah, it was.
Nobody had to. It was just a way of life
Yeah.
till this use and throw system came up.
Mm,
And
mm.
now that we've done enough of this use and throw, I think we are learning fast, and we will be able to. And I hope, it's only a stigma that we have in India, especially if I were to talk about our market.
Mm.
We have a stigma. Okay, we cannot reuse, we cannot use, but and that's where I think the role of media is going to come.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to keep pushing it, and the role of designers in upcycling a product and making it comparable. You see, let's face it, an upcycled product is not going to be looking as pick and span as
Yeah,
a new product.
yeah.
But in our psyche, we have to get okay with it.
Hmm.
We have to get okay with imperfections. We have to be proud about the fact that you have saved the piece, or you've done good to the thing. So this is how I see this whole thing is going to turn into a trend, what you've just said, that whole this mega consumerism is going to go. And that is the new segment for design to happen, waiting for, that's going to be the new, should be the new explosion,
Yeah.
where you pick up old pieces and you give them a completely new look.
It's like the Japanese kintsugi, right? Where they admire the imperfections and they use gold to join even
Yeah,
broken
you
pieces of
you
glass.
add value. You see, it's not that it's just been patched up and put it back to use. You have added value. They add gold to it.
Yeah,
Suddenly goes. So that's where I think that's where a lot of design thinking has to happen. Designers need to come up with, these kind of things
superb.
and
Uh,
workshops.
Mridula, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but we are also sort of running out of time. We have a bunch of questions that have come up, so maybe we quickly go
Yeah,
through.
just so these are just basically some. These are going to be the inputs, influences that we are looking at. Well, we
Oh,
hope.
well, we need that in the
Yes,
post-pandemic era.
yes. There is also desire. There is energy in the desire, because we've all been kind of cooped up, and we need
Hmm,
to go out and do stuff. There is energy. There is desire. We also seek order.
yeah.
We
A lot of this seems to be a response from the last 2 years. I mean, we are seeking tranquility, order, nature, reflection, hope. It seems to have born out of the trauma of the last 2 years. And is that your sense as well?
Yes, you see, all the trends that we have are based on our what we are going through as
Mm,
a collective. So we need right now, we need some sparkle. We need some sparkle.
mm,
We can't go all out, but we need sparkle. We need tranquility. And we also know that there is, that's going to be this gradient in colors. I personally feel is going to be a really big thing, because we're not sure. The sand is shifting under our feet
mm.
every time there's a new wave, and the kind of things, images we are seeing and people are going through. And just when you think everything is okay, you hear of another thing. So these things are going to continue. We're going to desire continuity, because it's going away. So we're going to these are the we need the warmth.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
need we need nature.
Yeah.
So we need to surround ourselves with nature. We need to cocoon ourselves, and we need fantasy. We need to keep going. you know we have to go on, right? And fantasy helps you.
Yeah, yeah,
And of
absolutely.
course, you need humor. You couldn't live without humor, right?
Never.
Humor to see the lighter side, and then of course your tech, AI, because that's part of everything now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So yeah, that is what. Yeah. So yep.
No, what I find very interesting about this is the trends, or at least the indicators that you've shared with us here today. Um, it is, well, hopefully, it is aiming towards more joy in life, whether it's through tranquility, hope. Um, you said you used the word aspiration earlier, and this seems to be a global aspiration. And I don't think this is limited to anywhere in particular in the world. It's not limited to just India. It's not limited to you or me. It's a global phenomenon. It's a global need, actually. So I kind of feel like it's transcended from just being a trend to being a resonance of what the global sentiment is, and that's quite powerful.
Yes. So it's like if the way Marshall McLuhan called India, the world a global village. Now is the time we are feeling that we really are a village, because the entire world is in the grip of this.
That's true.
Yeah, and
Um,
everybody's feeling the same.
yeah.
So we are a collective.
It's a collective feeling, and I think I want to pause here and bring up our last question for the day. And this is for all our audiences. Can we have poll number 3, please, very quickly? I want to get a sense of what the students feel is the most critical factor for trends. So your options are: what is the most pertinent ingredient for trend? You've seen a few that Mridula has shared. Is it cultures and heritage? Is it society at large? Is it politics and economic situations? Is it technology, or is it the global environment? What do you think is the most pertinent for a trend, or I would say the mover of trend? What has the greatest influence? If you were to pick, Mridula, what would you pick?
You know, I would say all.
See,
I would say all.
we
Because
were clever. We didn't give that option for our audiences. We want you to choose one. But, in your mind, or do you want to wait for the audiences actually?
let's wait for the
Let's see what
audience.
they
Yeah,
have
let's
to
see what the
say. Can
audience
we
has to
answer,
say.
please?
Yeah, yeah, because there is a lot that goes. Okay, we have it.
Technology
Ah, see?
30%, global environment 30%, culture, heritage 22, and society at large 19. Zero think politics and economic situations have any influence on the trend. And I would like actually your insight on this particular. Surprisingly, nobody chose politics and economic situation. Can you Can you give a maybe an example of when politics and economics has influenced a trend?
So, politics and economic situations, one, it's quite localized, right? So that it always comes up in your micro trends.
Okay.
But uh, we are always impacted by what is happening around us. And that is all of these, you know, political and economic situation. If you're doing well, your mood is different, right?
That's
If the
true.
economic situation, if there are no jobs, then you're not looking at fanciful stuff. You're not looking at, you are looking more at you. I don't want to use bring upcycle here, but you're looking at how to maximize your resources.
Please, yeah. Mridula, can we be a little louder, please? I think there are audiences, we are getting the comment that your audio is feeble.
Oh, okay. Is that better now?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, it is. Yes, it
Okay,
is. Sorry about
fantastic.
that.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the thing is, everything feeds into your thing. If the political situation is, it does impact. I don't want to say anything more right now, but take it, it does impact.
Yeah, it does. I was thinking of an example where, if you look at the 1920s, the heyday of the Industrial Revolution and all of those things, there was a lot of gold trimmings, exuberant interiors and trends.
Yeah,
We saw similarly that after 2008, when the markets were on the upswing, we suddenly started seeing a lot of gold. But during the Depression and during the 2008 economic bust, I think everything became somber.
minimalist. We went towards minimalism, right?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
that's where yeah, it does impact. Actually, everything impacts. As a layperson, you don't realize how it's working. It's finding its way to, it's like the water finding its level, but it does.
So, Mridula, let's have a few questions before we move on to your last slide, because I want you to talk about that, but I want to take up a few questions first, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So there's an anonymous attendee who's asking, what is the pathway to get into the field of mass media from interior design background?
Oh, the other way. Great. Of course, now mass media from, okay. So, yeah, obviously one has to join institute if you want to do it professionally. But for the longest, we have not had now we have lifestyle communication, lifestyle as a department or as a subject in mass communication. Till now it was always related, it was all the heavy stuff, your politics and economics and and
Mhm.
science and technology and all those. Lifestyle was never dedicated. Now we have dedicated lifestyle media. So and there are lots of institutes also.
Yeah.
So yeah, just find a good institute that you sing, feel synchronized with what they are teaching and the faculty. And yeah.
I'm actually wondering whether this attendee means if they're an interior designer, can they be hired by a magazine like Living, etc., if they wanted to get into publishing?
It's very good that people should try to do that, and it would be good, like, if when I was there, if I had somebody like that and who was good at writing. And see, being trained as a journalist also makes it a little easier, because it tells you what can go in, because we've had a lot of people who are not trained as journalists in the lifestyle media, and it has been a problem because they don't understand what is important and why a certain thing must go as a thing. But so
Mm.
if you're trained as a journalist, you know what to look for and how to put it forward. So
Mm.
a bit of journalism, even if these days you have short modules, it's always good. It's always good to do an online module on journalism, and then come on, because it's not about just write. These days, it's not just writing about a nice looking home. You have to know what part of it, and there is a complexity to it. It's better because also, right now, things are happening so fast that
That's
we don't have the time to train people.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
the
just
reality of
being an
reality.
interior designer and just being good with words is not enough.
Yeah.
You have to know how to prioritize the content, and how to present it. So I would suggest do a quick module.
Sounds good. I hope that answers your question, anonymous attendee. Next, we have Muhammad Nihal. He's asking, should a designer strive to be a trendsetter instead of following an existing one?
Why not? The thing is, the trends are coming, right? If you're aligned with what is happening around you, you are part of the system. And depends upon the body of work that you have. Why not? Why not? It's about conviction. It's about a conviction. And you feel strongly about a certain thing, you could go ahead and make it a trend and find, yes, why not?
Yeah, I think it requires a lot of hard work. I mean, you mentioned
Crazy. It's crazy
car.
work. Don't get me wrong. You can't just start a trend and think that it's a thing. It's a lot of work. It's a lifetime commitment. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned two people, Mike Knowles and from Karu, Sanjeev and his wife, Anjali. And I think those are great people to start reading about, by the way, if you want to start to be a trendsetter, see what they did.
Yes.
Like you also mentioned, learn from the masters, learn from the
Learn
best.
from the masters and see how, these were the points. Now, we talked about hospitality as well.
Hmm.
So you had Welcome Heritage and you had Neemrana.
That's true.
Amarnath and Francis, late Francis, the way they started taking up these old properties and redoing them, that was a big turning point for us to start looking at our own heritage or colonial, whatever these big buildings that we had, colonial buildings, and how they were just with the local stuff, they were making them so attractive. So hospitality, so follow hospitality. And, I have to say that when this whole thing started, when design, so now if we say, um, when I joined Inside Outside, so what was happening was that we were getting a lot of interesting design that was coming from Bangalore, which
Mhm.
was for all the pubs and bars and nightclubs.
Right.
And Bombay was getting very Scandinavian, small apartments, minimalist.
Right.
And Delhi had these huge farmhouses. The farmhouses were were really happening that time. So it's very interesting because Bangalore hospitality showed the way. Sandeep Khosla was doing bars after bars.
Yeah.
and there's lighting and everything. And then, of course, we had the PVRs in Delhi that,
Mm.
so these were the markers, and these kind of then, filtered into other spaces. And once again, we find now Bangalore again ahead because we have a lot of craft-based design happening again in hospitality in Bangalore. What
Interesting.
Shruti Jaipuria is doing, she's doing a lot of craft-based design, and that's very, very interesting.
I think this question also is a great segue to the next one. I like this question that's coming up. Nimi Sanjit asks, could you forecast an Indian design trend that could probably shake up the international design market?
Okay. So there is no such thing as an Indian design trend. Trend is universal. That's why it is a trend, because so many more people are aligning. They're finding resonance in that trend. So there is no such thing as an Indian trend. Where India can feed into a big trend that is happening is the craft-based design. And we do have people, and we have some very interesting people doing work in wood. We have very interesting work happening in cane. We have very good stuff happening in textile, especially in the Northeast. So there's a lot thing, and we have, interestingly, because now the borders are not so strict, and it's easier for people to do business and travel. I mean, like, besides the pandemic, otherwise, it's easier for people to kind of communicate and get across. And so somebody sitting in north of France, in Lille, can get in touch with somebody in Nagaland and work on the Northeast fabrics.
Mm.
So we're seeing a lot of, what we need actually is cross-pollination,
Okay.
which is what I feel as we go forward, uh, the new design, the new trend is going to be the magic that comes out of cross-pollination,
Lovely.
whether it is technique, whether it is material, whether it is technology.
That's excellent. I hope we can see some of that work coming out of the Center Bay School of Design as well. And I have maybe time for one more questions. Okay, we'll take the last one perhaps. Bibi Zainab Rohina says, what are the important things every interior designer should know? That's one, and I'm going to add to that question. How can a young interior designer get featured in one of these amazing magazines? So two-part question. What are the things every interior designer should know, and how they can get their work published in a great magazine?
So to answer the first question, what an interior designer must know is that your first thing that you need is empathy. You should be able to empathize and understand what your client is looking for, and then also have a 360 view or an understanding of all that is available in the market, because right now there is so much in the market. And that person, your client, is going to build a home once. He's not going to come back after 2 years and build the same thing all over again. So you need to give him the best within his budget or whatever his ecosystem is. So as for that, you need to be totally aware of what all can be done and at what cost so that he gets the best. Your commitment is to your client.
Excellent.
And to manifest and realize his dream in the best possible way, in a way that he can live. So that is, first thing is that empathy, and to be able to think. And of course, everything else that you learn as a design student, all the things, the balance, the rhythm, all those fundas I don't need to tell, right? Design schools teach everything when it's, So I think a place has to have sense of proportion, color balance, white, lighting, everything. Balance. And one thing which is very interesting in the good interiors is that when you're doing interiors, remember, always include some conversation pieces. when you accessorize, because that brings a lot of joy and spark to a home. So yeah, besides
So
that's
empathy, 360-degree, know what you want, balance, and the X factor is your conversation pieces. That's excellent. I think you've just kind of given them a bite-sized lecture that they would have learned at 4 years. So how does a young designer get featured in one of your magazines or in any of the other magazines?
so first thing is you have to have your product. I'm saying that it's going to be either a product or a project, right?
Mhm.
So invest in photography. First thing is either learn photography or invest in photography. You need very good quality pictures, which will be eye-catching and which do justice. That's the
Hmm.
first thing. Then uh, I would recommend that before you just pick up those pictures and send them to any magazine office, do a kind of a peer review. Circulate it in your network and get a feedback, honest feedback. And refine. Then prepare a docket which has your CV. It should have a statement of design. What, what is your statement as a, do you have a, what you think of design and what the project or the product, what is the genesis of that, and
Hmm.
a few good pictures. And then and then mail it. Try and find the editor's direct email ID. We do have a lot of forums where a lot of, you do get in bulk mail, but it helps if you have a direct ID,
Sure.
more chances of it getting noticed.
Fabulous.
And if not, then just send it to whatever generic info or whatever info website. And it's not easy. They don't think that first time you send, and of course you've already put in so much effort and think into it, and you think that now of course you're going to get a call, and of course the carpet's going to be laid out for you. No, nothing like that. There can be huge silences. It can be radio silence because either the team got busy with something else. Do pick up the phone and call, check once.
Hmm.
If you can't get through, second time, but don't pester.
Hmm.
Find another way. Find somebody in the office who can, if you can find. Otherwise, keep at it. The next time, have another project, have a thing. And because, let tell you that we are looking for young, especially at Living constantly for young talent, because we had a section. And so when you study your media, also do that. There will always be sections for young designers.
Hmm.
So hit for that.
Fabulous. And I think exhibiting your work on social media is a great way
Yeah.
to generate some buzz these days. I mean, when I look at some of the young designers, they seem to be on Instagram and putting up great curation of images. But yeah, Instagram is a great way to get your editor
That's
interested.
the best thing that happened, for designers. I feel it's the best thing that happened. You can reach to so many people,
Yeah.
and there are always, it's such a huge section of people that you are reaching out. Somebody or the other you will find, and it's social media is a great way.
It is,
So
it is.
keep at it. Social media strategy should be a strong one.
Yeah, it's a good tool in your kit, I think.
Yes, but also remember, don't pester. You lose your
You
chances. You lose your
speaking
future.
from experience, is it?
It happens with no malice. It happens, and it's a very hectic state of mind. And
Mm,
if you have constant calls coming from saying you don't want to be rude, but you
it's hard to manage. It's hard
yeah,
to.
yeah.
So, Mridula, what's next for you? I mean, you have now sort of left full time at Livin, etc. So, what does the future hold for you?
So to tell you in one sentence, Srishti, it's like where my words were going earlier, my hands and feet are going.
Ah,
So I'm going to be doing everything that I was doing at the magazine and writing about what I was writing about. I'm going to be doing in practical terms. So that means interiors, curation, book publishing, and I have just got myself started on. If I were to share,
you can just press next. I think that's the next slide.
it's yeah. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to put my so it's going to be a very small thing, everything that I can handle myself. So, and there is, the good thing is that there is so much happening in the industry right now. And the exciting part is that there are different ways of doing the same thing.
Hmm.
And I'm so looking forward, and we are already on a couple of projects. And and of course, we've also gotten into this gig economy now.
Hmm.
People come in, it's a module, you associate with people for a project, and then they go on and you go on. And yeah, so this is so I'm currently working on curating a boutique, furniture boutique. I'm also going to be doing an interiors for a pharma office, and I'm consulting for new markets for brands, and of course all the talks and events and styling is I've just finished a huge styling project for one of the big hotel chains in the world, uh, chains of the world, Raffles to be thing. And I have just also done promotion for an architect's monograph. So it's all happening. It's like I said, it's an ecosystem, it's a cosmos now. Design is like a cosmos. And there is so much that needs to be done. And the good part is that you choose what you would like to do and do it at your own pace. But my thing is going to be that only what I can give my full time attention to.
Fabulous. It seems like you're ready for the next phase full on. I think this looks very, very exciting, Mridula, and I do wish you the best of luck with all of this, and hope we'll get to see more of you talking about design, because all that you shared today was so interesting and relevant for our young minds today. And I think you gave us a real insight of how at least a glimpse of how the industry works. And with all the interior design students present at Sindave, I hope you got to learn a lot from this conversation. I mean, I did. And it was lovely chatting with you, Mridula. We've come to the end of this first talk this week. Thank you so much for an amazing, amazing session. Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. It's been wonderful chatting. Thank you very much. Thank you. And like I said, I always enjoy interacting with students. Done a lot of interaction with students, and it's very, even in the office, the team, I would always enjoy working with the youngsters because you get such different perspectives. So it's really interesting to think. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful chatting with you. As always, a pleasure. And congratulations to Cinder Bay for their 15 years and all the good work that they're doing and putting, good professionals in the market. I think that's a great service that's happening to the industry. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, Mridula. Always a pleasure. And I hope that Sindave will call you back for lectures and interacting with students. But it's been such a joy, and thank you for today.
Thank you very much. Bye.
For all our audience members, may I remind you, tomorrow and day after, there are two more sessions that you have to join in. Tomorrow, like I said, Ayaz, very interesting mind, actually, very curious, gentle thinker. And we have Abhigyan, who has made a big splash in a very short time. And I know that his work has also been featured in Levin, etc. Previously. So both great thinkers and interior designers. So please do join us. And it was wonderful to have you all today. Thank you and good evening. Bye-bye.